Many a young boy has run out onto a football pitch just like this one, secretly dreaming of one day becoming an international player. Stuart Elliott was a boy like this, and thankfully he has seen his dream fulfilled. One Saturday evening after playing for Northern Ireland, he came to my home, and thankfully we had the camera there that night and we captured this story on film. Why don't you sit back and listen while Stuart tells you about, as he says, the secret of his success.
I was brought up like any young boy in the back streets of Belfast, living in the shadows of the Oval. You know, many great players played for Glentoran, and it was always my dream to play for Glentoran. I was brought up in where the shipyard cranes are there. It was just fantastic. And you know, from a very early age, I had a love for football. Nothing else. Some young lads had love for throwing stones at the police and doing different things like that. But my love was for football. And I used to kick the ball. Every time I used to come home from school, the first thing that happened was the bag was off the shoulder, and out I went to the side wall, and I was kicking the ball and kicking the ball. And you know, I believe, even as a young boy, that gifts come from heaven. And you know, God had given me a gifting in playing football, and He was going to bring me before many people, as we all know today. You say, how do you know that? Well, the book of Jeremiah, chapter 1 and 5 says this: "Before I formed you in your mother's belly, I knew you, and ordained you to go forth to the nations." And you know, God was going to take that simple little boy, Stuart Elliott, and use him for His honour and for His glory. So I love football. And my football started in Mersey Street Primary School, as I say, just beside the Oval, Glentoran Football Club. And it was about primary 5, primary 6 where I started showing potential. And my teacher, Mr. Mackay, who was the football teacher at the time, came along to me and said, "Son, we think you've got potential here. We want you to go and represent our school for the Belfast schools." And so I said, well, this is fantastic. So I was buzzing, I was going along. It was my first full opportunity. Got my new football boots and got everything I needed. And away I went to those schoolboy trials. And you know, I was so nervous on the day. I was the smallest one there. I thought to myself, look at the size of these boys. Some of them had hairs on their chest and they were only in P7. I thought, how on earth am I going to make it into the last squad here? There was 400 boys. And you know the thing, people? From a very early age, there was 10 in my family. So you can imagine what it was like in my house. It was chaos. But my dad was always very busy. And it wasn't because he didn't love me, but he was out trying to make a living. And I had to go along to those trials by myself. But I seen all those other boys turning up with their fathers. And you know, they had the best of gear. And they had the, you know, everything they needed. And their dads were there. I was so proud of them, standing and cheering them on the sidelines. But I actually walked to Strandtown School that time for those trials myself. I remember it was so cold that I couldn't even put my football boots on. Couldn't even tie my laces. There was this little boy alone. And that's the way I felt from a very early age. I felt left out. I felt a lack of intimacy, even with my parents. And I thought to myself, how am I going to do this? But then, inside a couple of days, it was narrowed down from 400 to 30 people. And yours truly made the last 30. And I was rushing home and I says, "Dad, I've made the last 30. And I was like, "Yes, well done, son, but I'm not really interested. And just stick with me because I'm going somewhere with you." And what happened there was I went along to the last 30, and out of that 15 were going to be picked. And I made the last 15. So we went and played Liverpool schools and played some of the professionals over there. And what had happened then was we went along to the end of season dinner, and I managed to persuade my father to come along. I said, "Dad, it's going to be great." Terry Moore, who was one of the great Glentoran players, was there, and he was presenting the trophies. And I remember them saying this: Player of the Year in Belfast schools was Stuart Elliott, the boy with the golden left foot. And I was so proud. My dad was there, my mum was there. This meant the world to me. I love my dad with all of my heart, and just for him to be there with me was just something special. And I picked up my award, and you know something? That wasn't by chance. You might say it was by chance, but it wasn't by chance. God Almighty had His hand upon me even before I would come to Him. But after that, I started to blossom. A man called Joe Kincaid lives in the Shankill, runs one of the most successful boys' clubs called St Andrew's Football Club. And he used to stand with a big Scout's cap on and the overcoat, and he'd scare the life out of you. He came with my dad and he says, you know, your son's a great player. I would like him to come with the elite, you know, with boys like Keith Gillespie there, with John Morrow played for Rangers, Colin Nixon at Glentoran, just the elite of Northern Ireland football. And I thought, this is fantastic. So I went along and it started to blossom, it started to snowball. And then I joined the Man United School of Excellence. Everything was going fantastic for me. Started secondary school, started playing football in secondary school, brilliant.
Stuart was an exceptionally talented boy. He played on the left side of the pitch, normally on the left wing there, and could beat several men, maybe at times trying to beat too many men, but there's one thing about him, he could score goals and he could hit a lovely cross for the centre forward as well, so all-round ability was very good.
But you know something, as life does sometimes for us people, my world was going to come crumbling down. And one Saturday, my dad meant the world to me. And this is what happened. I was prospering in my football, doing well. The world was my oyster. Everything was going well for me. I remember coming home from Dundela Football Club with Paul Lehman, who was a friend of mine that played at Glentoran. And I seen my Uncle Billy stand at the end of the road. And I never saw my Uncle Billy on a Saturday. And this is what he called me. And I said, something's got to be wrong here. I just seen it in his face. And he said to me, Stuart, son, your father passed away in my arms today of a massive heart attack. Now my family background was such as that we needed my father to provide for us. And this just blew my world apart because I had 7 sisters. Many of them I went into the wee house that we were living in just to see the hopelessness there, and I couldn't take it in. It was just like, there's no way, my father's not dead. He's going to come through the door in 5 minutes. And it wouldn't hit home with me. But you know, it was to get worse before it was to get better. So all of a sudden my life was just come crumbling down. And I went on for 2 years and all I had was my football. My football meant everything to me. It was a getaway for me. And you know, my mum was on antidepressants at the time and all I ever got was this. I was coming in and they said, Mum had scored on Saturday, and she said, well, look at this one, he's going to Liverpool. Look at this one, he's going to Manchester United. He's going to Rangers. You'll never make yourself nothing. Don't believe the devil's lies, people. He's a liar. He said that I would never be nothing. He was using my mother, although she loved me. That was a way of trying to G me up. But you know, it made me more determined to do well. And I went on and I got to the age of 15. And listen, here's what happened. I put all my eggs in one basket. I couldn't care less about my education. By the way, young people, if you're ever listening to this tape, big mistake. Try and get a good education. But I put my eggs in one basket and I says, teacher used to ask me, what do you want to be? I said, I'm going to be a footballer. I don't want to do maths. At the age of 15, I remember going to a little club on the Shankill Road and all the scouts were there. Joe Kincaid was there. They were all giving their awards out. All going to Rangers, Arsenal, Celtic, all the top football clubs were taking the cream from Northern Ireland. And he came to me at the end of the presentation and he said this, son, I'm sorry, but you're too small. And isn't that what the world does to us sometimes? It just eats us up and spits us out. And I remember going back to my house totally devastated. My father gone. When I looked around at my family, there was nothing. And then all of a sudden, this whole football world caves in. And I remember leaving school, no qualifications. I took a year out of football. And I remember one morning just waking up and looking at the ceiling. And I started to ask myself this question. What's life really all about? There's got to be more to life than this rat race. And you know something, it was 2 years before I was to meet the meaning of life.